Good afternoon, Council. You would think I'd know how to use the tech, wouldn't you? I'd like to welcome you to Council this afternoon, and particularly a warm welcome to His Majesty's Deputy Lieutenant Tony Walker. Thank you for joining us and representing His Majesty. Just before we move to prayers, I'd like to say we are approaching 100 years since the Representation of the People's Act put men and women on an equal footing to vote. We hear now that women are put off high-profile positions due to cowardly abuse and intimidation. This is appalling and has no place in politics and a civilised society. Before Councillor Smith says prayers, I call on Councillor Brown to expand on this point, please.
Yeah, well, there we go. Now, just to acknowledge what's just been said, in the memory of Joe Cox, and indeed all politicians who faced abuse, intimidation or violence just simply for doing their job. It's a point to remind you just to be, regardless of party or politics, we all have a responsibility to be mindful of the language we use, the things we post and the tone we set in public life. Healthy debate matters, but so does respect, and we should be conscious of the impact of our words and our actions that have beyond this chamber. So regardless of what party we represent, we should protect and support each other at all times in the memory of Joe Cox. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith, can you now say prayers? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As we gather today in service of the people of Derbyshire, let us remember in sorrow and reflection the life of Joe Cox, whose belief that we have more in common than that which divides us still speaks powerfully to public life today. Grant us wisdom in our debates, grace in our disagreements, and the courage to stand against intimidation and division, serving our communities with integrity and compassion, remembering always that public office is a duty of care and service to others. Thank you.
The first item of business is to seek nominations for Chairman of the County Council for the coming year. But before we do that, it says here that I'm going to make a few brief remarks, but I'm actually going to inflict a slideshow on you. So if we're able to do that, please, Alec. Oh, sorry, can you pause? 1 second. There was another bit. Sitting in this beautiful room with all you lovely people and taking this chair every now and then is lovely. And spending a couple of hours in jolly discourse and banter. But as I was going to say, the majority of my role, I've been out and about, and hence the slideshow, which I'll come back to. Sorry, I shouldn't have bothered saying that, should I? I heard that.
It was snowing that day.
It was snowing. I shouldn't. No. It didn't fall as it was supposed to anyway. I was expecting them. What was that? What was it? Brilliant, thank you, Alex. Yeah, the last year has been a whirlwind. Chris Henning reminded me last week of when he approached me as a somewhat shell-shocked, newly elected councillor. So a lot's happened in that last year, and here we are at the handover or the ceremony last year. My first engagement was with my family at Tissington Well Dressings, and looking at my son there, you can see he's 10, and George thinks I've only done this really to embarrass him. He's not been the most enthusiastic supporter, but I do want to thank my family for all the support they've given me. Next, please. And this is the chain gang at the well dressings, including 5 high sheriffs. So it was great to introduce my children to the Sheriff of Nottingham, and yeah, lots of events like that. I've had a number of consorts, including Councillor Wilson. Here we are at the Christ's Pilgrimage, where I laid a wreath, and yes, he's been great support and is doing tremendous work for armed forces veteran. Thank you, Tony. It's surprising when you get out and about in the county who you bump into. So here's my wife and I. This was an armed forces Army Benevolent Fund, wasn't it, at Chatsworth, and Lucy came up to say hello. So thank you. And you're not embarrassed by having your photo up there, are you? Another consort you can see in front of me there is my daughter Hattie, who was so proud to wear the consort or the vice chairman medal, and this is at Derbyshire Swimming Championships. Yes, her teacher was there, a swimming teacher, and lots of other people we met, so she was really good. My mother has probably come to most events with me as consort. She, I shouldn't say her age, but she's not in her youth, and those who've met you found she's quite a formidable lady, and she's been very helpful. So thanks, Mum. Hope she's watching. That was outside Derby Cathedral. You may not know, but the county has their own bench in the cathedral, so we got to sit there on a number of occasions. And for my mum, who's a Derby girl and was brought up on living over a shop on London Road, it's quite a leap. Outside the cathedral with the Deputy Mayor of Derby, Philip Ingle, and his wife. Then civic service. The children were invited to blow bubbles. I can't quite remember the occasion, but this was in the Cathedral of the Peak at Tideswell. I made a really bad speech, and we were entertained by the Dalesman Male Voice Choir, and so it was a lovely occasion. And there's the group outside, so really well supported, and thank you for all those who came. And especially these two, Robbo and Robbie, ex-army mates. They made travel quite a distance. Lots of fun events as well. This is we're at Ilkeston for the fair with the mayor there, Harry. Occasionally we needed help, but we were saved by the cavalry. Here is Sir Richard Fitzherbert from Tissington, the High Sheriff. I was just saying to Councillor Warmby, I've seen her on a number of occasions, and yeah, we've been a good group. We've enjoyed ourselves, haven't we? And Sir Richard's probably been instrumental in that. But what are the chances that I'd end up here at the same time that he was High Sheriff? I've known him, we're the same age, and I've known him since he came to Derbyshire. So it's been quite special. We're also saved by the Navy, and if anybody wants to put a caption on this, they're on a mission from God. If you can't see, there's a dog collar in there as well. This is the Derbyshire Awards. I keep bumping into people at things, so my friend Kate Woods there won an award. She works here for the council, done a great job in catering. On the Food and farming theme, here we are at Brailsford Playing Match. This is my cousin Mark Adams, who is the chairman now of Brailsford Playing Match, and his fiancée Kath. So we like to keep things close in the farming community, we're all related. But this guy, Alistair Snedden, who's one of the directors at Bagshaws, I don't know what it said, but I look like I'm a bit cross with him. We had, during the year, a royal visit to Toyota. Unfortunately, the photographer didn't read his brief and didn't take any photographs of the receiving line. So this is a great photograph from there. Moving on to more solemn stuff now, Remembrance Day, the Lord Lieutenant Elizabeth Fothergill and the High Sheriff Sir Richard Fitzherbert with us. Remembrance, obviously a very busy time. I attended 2 events on the Sunday, and that event was on Remembrance Day here. This is at High Peak, no it's not, it's at Chesterfield, and you might just pick out Councillor Cliff there in the foreground. So yes, I thought that was very fitting at the end of the day in the dusk to leave. There was an older man and woman making ceremony, which I think is quite unusual. So that was a great event, and to honour these people, including my immediate predecessor in the seat, Councillor Simon Spencer, Alderman Councillor Simon Spencer. Lots of civic events, and I've particularly liked this photograph. This is at Dinting in the High Peak, and yeah, just an illustration of the events I've been to. Great company, tea and cake, and get around the county, and it's been really good. More sobering again. This is my last event on Sunday just gone. And it was Ukrainian Remembrance Occasion Day at Weston-on-Trent. And yeah, it's to represent the county there. It's incredible that the Ukrainians have got this memorial in Derbyshire. And it was warm on Sunday, but what a beautiful, tranquil place to have a memorial. And I knew a little bit about the Ukraine, but I'd read up some more. And when you consider what they've gone through in the 20th century, and particularly struck me was the Holodomor, which I was aware of, where at the minimum 3 million people were starved to death, and various invasions fighting across the country. It's very sobering, and yet again it makes us feel, me particularly, feel very grateful that we live in this wonderful country, and as Churchill put it, we have this moat which has historically protected us. And finally, this is for Hattie, I hope you're watching. It was very sweet last night. She came to me and asked if I was got to give the chain back. And so we had a little time spent modelling the chain, and yes, we've talked about women in politics. I come from a family of strong women, from my great-grandma, my sister, my nieces, my wife, and my daughter. And hopefully she will be able to take a leading role in society in the fullness of time. So thank you for that, Alec. Well, I am struggling to express my feelings at undertaking this role. It is a massive honour and privilege, but it is more than that. Being elevated amongst your peers brings responsibility, duty and service to others. It's happening now. At times, I have been overwhelmed by the respect and warmth that has been shown to me. I thank my group, particularly Alan and Rob, who appointed me, for the opportunity and support they've given me. I thank the other council members and the staff for their patience and help. But most of all, I thank the people of Derbyshire for making this such a wonderful place for us all to live. Thank you. Another intervention. Thank you.
You know me, I like interventions. Mr. Chairman, honoured guests and members of the Council. I think before we proceed, I just want to say a few words about the man who has occupied the chair over the past year, Councillor Nick Adams. Nick took on the chairmanship of this council at a remarkable moment. He is the first reformed chairman in the council's history, and he carried that responsibility with a quiet dignity that I think even those who disagree with our politics would find difficult to fault. The chairman's role asks something particular of whoever holds it. It asks you to set your own views to one side, to be fair to every member around this chamber, and to represent this council to the wider world with courtesy and grace. Nick did all of that. He did it week in, week out, without fuss, without complaint, and I know from speaking to members across the chamber that his conduct in the chair was respected. Away from this chamber, Nick is an organic farmer, well known and well regarded across the farming community in Derbyshire and particularly in Ashbourne, which he represents with such dedication. He has a young family, and I have no doubt they are proud of what he has achieved this year, and those pictures go to show that. I must mention Shrovetide. For those who haven't experienced it, Ashbourne's Royal Shrovetide football is one of the great spectacles of our county. Ancient, chaotic, and entirely magnificent. Nick was kind enough to invite me to take part, and I can tell you, I was very much in the thick of it. That invitation said something about the man. He is proud of his community, he wanted to share it, and he made me feel genuinely welcome in his town. I won't forget it. On a personal level, I am grateful. Leading this council is not always straightforward, and having a chairman who understood what we were trying to do for the people of Derbyshire, who conducted our proceedings with such care, made a real difference. Nick, on behalf of this council, thank you. You have set a fine standard, and this council is in your debt.
Thank you for those very kind words. Councillor Reid, please.
If I can take the indulgence. Nick, Chair, for the last time, thank you. I know when you took the role, and I know it was big shoes to kind of fill and get everything around. I know we've spoken a lot about that, going, what skills do you have to transfer? And I think one of the key things, as Alan has mentioned in this as well, is you're a cattle farmer. You herd cattle. And I kind of look at some of the similarities sometimes in the way in this chamber that we obviously have very friendly banter between each other, and especially with myself, who is very outspoken. It can sometimes seem that is a very transferable skill into this chamber. So I just want to thank you for your professionalism, your grace, as a veteran, the way you've upheld and supported those things too, and supported our Armed Forces champion, and everything you've done for Derbyshire and what you've done for this council. So thank you very much for your contribution.
That's very kind, thank you. As I left home, I'd got a straw hat on, and my son said, "Where are you going? You've got a cowboy hat on and a suit." Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I think never mind cattle, if you can herd this chamber, I think you can herd cats moving forward, frankly. But I just wanted to echo the words of Councillor Graves and Councillor Reid there. Thank you for your fantastic year as Chair. It's clear from the pictures you've had a cracking year. You've had a really enjoyable time. It was really touching and sort of emotional to see you've involved your family at every opportunity as well. I think that's such a great thing to do, and real testament to you and your values as a family person. And just fantastic to see that you've represented the county. I know we haven't always made your life easy, in the chamber, and obviously I apologise for that. But politics is politics. But actually, the role of the chair is so much more than this meeting, and I think you really exercised your duties as chair in a fantastic way. So from our group, congratulations, and thank you very much for your service as chair, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As has been said, there's more that joins us than divides us, and it was unusual for us to find a common bond in the music of Jay-Z. Councillor Kinsella, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my voice to those that have already spoken. I think it's fair to say that certainly from our group there's a little bit of intrepidation at the beginning of the year. But I think, and I've spoken to Nick a number of times and I've emailed him a number of times about the way he's chaired the meetings and dealt with some very difficult circumstances. kind of some very rowdy, difficult debates. And I think he's done it he's showed his basically objectivity and independence. And I think for me, that counts above all. To have that dignity and to be above the crowd and to be fair to all in this chamber, I think speaks volumes for you. So thank you very much for the year you've been chair.
Thank you very much. And you know inside I'm agreeing because I'm an organic farmer. Councillor Wilton.
Thank you, Chair. As a fellow farmer, and I think the comments are very apt, I think there are very many transferable skills from farming to being a councillor. I'm not going to add anything else that's been said. You have done a very, very good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for all this. And Councillor Clark, please.
Just to add what everyone else has said, thank you so much. It's been a hard role that you've had there, but you've took it on and you've obviously enjoyed the year, and good luck for next year.
Thank you. Councillor Snowden.
Thank you, Chair. Not wanting to be left out in this. I think you took on a very difficult role coming into the council like that the first time. It's not been the easiest chamber to manage over the last year, but I think you have done a very good job. And I'd like to add my thanks to the rest that have been expressed in the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you. That really, really does mean a lot to me. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Right, we'd better move on. The first item of business is to seek nominations for Chairman of the County Council. I do hope there is one. Could I have a nomination for the Chair of the Council, please? Councillor Groves.
Mr. Chairman, can I nominate Councillor Jodie Brown?
And a seconder for that nomination, please. Thank you, Councillor Reid. Are there any further nominations? We can do this on a show of hands if wish. All in favour, please.
Any against?
Are there any against? Any abstentions? That's wonderful, and a fitting tribute. And you certainly, Councillor Brown, will have my full support and confidence that you'll do a very good job. So that's approved. Thank you. I declare, Councillor Brown, that you've been elected as Chairman of Derbyshire County Council for 2026 to 2027. We'll ask that you go over and sign the declaration of acceptance of office, and I'll hand over the chain of office. So please bear with us, everybody, for a few moments. Sorry.
I, Jodie Brown, having been elected the office of Chairman of Derbyshire County Council, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Now sign the declaration. Can you sign it now? There we go. The biggest challenge for me being the chair is going to be able to read and look up and not lose my place. So if I do lose my place, just bear with me while I find the words again. So the first item is apologies for absence. So are there any apologies from the reform? Councillor Price.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies as follows: Councillor Lawson, Councillor Chambers and Councillor Taylor.
And now Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair, and can I be the first to congratulate you on your election as Chairman of the County Council. I'm sure you'll do a fantastic job and look forward to working with you in your new role. Apologies in our group from Councillor Bull and Councillor Sutton. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wheelton.
Again, congratulations, Chair. Apologies from Councillor George. Thank you.
And just to note that we've also had apologies from Councillor Fordham as well. Is that everybody? Okay, fantastic. So item 3, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest before business today? No? Fantastic, moving on. So item 4, Chairman's announcements. So first, some housekeeping. So this meeting will be live and streamed, available for playback later through the Council's website on our YouTube channel. So you should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. And data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. If any member of the public has concerns about this, please speak to a member of staff. Please ensure that your mobile phones are off or on silent. And ask that you all speak clearly into the microphone so that both the councillors and the members of the public at home can hear you, and reminder that the voting buttons are being used. Please press the button once to request to speak and once at the end of your speech. There's no need to press it again. Please ask for assistance from Democratic Services if you need help with that. Item 6 on pages 132. The Vice Chair.
The what?
Vice Chair.
That's okay.
Okay. So, on item 6, pages 132, is to approve 1 to 26 of the minutes held on the 25th of March 26. So I'd like to move that these are approved. Could I have a seconder?
Councillor Graves.
That's Councillor Graves. And are there any comments on accuracy only? No comments? Okay, can we move to the vote for the minutes, then, please?
So, Jodie, you will need to vote yourself. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's the minutes approved. Item 6 is the appointment of the Vice Chairman of Derbyshire County Council for 2026 and 2027. Are there any nominations from the floor?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to nominate Councillor Robert Reaney.
Is there a seconder for that nomination? Any further nominations? Okay. In that case, we'll move to the vote.
Can do this by show of hands.
Yep, so show of hands.
All in favour?
All in favour. Thank you.
Any against? Can you say any against and any abstention?
Yeah. Is there any against? Okay, that's approved then. So Councillor Reaney, I declare that you have been elected as the Vice Chairman of Derbyshire County Council. Can you come to the front, please?
I, Robert Reaney, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of Derbyshire County Council, hereby declare that I take office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. And I sign away. Let's hope that signature's better than on the chair. That signature's better than the ones on the check.
All right, we'll get down to business then. Right, item 8, that's the report of the Leader of the Council's members. Questions on the report? Councillor Graves, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, members, I want to take a few moments to bring this council up to date on the work that has been done on your behalf and on behalf of the people of Derbyshire since we last met. This meeting takes place almost exactly 1 year since Reform UK won control of this council. A year is not long, but it is long enough to judge whether a council is serious about what it promised. I believe the record speaks for itself. Roads. Fixing the roads was our #1 demand of residents across this county, and we have delivered. In the past 12 months, we have invested a record £60 million on Derbyshire highways, the biggest single investment in our road network in the council's history. 34 pothole repair teams are now working across the county every single day, repairing up to 2,000 potholes a week. That is not a press release. That is work on the ground, in every district, in every ward. We have also established a dedicated highways innovation group to identify better, longer-lasting repair techniques, and it will be rolling out across the county network. Energy. Work has now begun on our solar farm at Williamthorpe near Chesterfield. 5,800 panels on a former colliery site that was sitting unused. When complete, it will generate around 3 million kilowatt hours of electricity a year, enough to power approximately 700 homes. With the income going directly back into the council funds for the benefit of local taxpayers. The installation is expected to be complete by the end of July. Supporting vulnerable residents. We have launched a new fund of up to £311,000 to help households across Derbyshire who rely on heating oil or LPG, who have seen their fuel costs rise sharply. Around 7,800 households in this county are using heating oil. Nearly 3,000 more rely on LPG. These are often rural households, elderly residents, people with no alternative. We are making sure that government funding reaches those that most need it, with up to £350 per household available and payments made directly to fuel suppliers. Investment. Derbyshire is open for business. Our Invest in Derbyshire team recently attended the UK Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum in Leeds, showcasing a portfolio of development opportunities worth billions of pounds. We want investment, we want jobs, and we want the people of this county to benefit from economic growth. Foster care. During the foster care fortnight earlier this month, I was pleased to recognise the extraordinary work of foster carers across Derbyshire. These are people who open their homes and give their time to transform young lives. On behalf of this council, thank you. That is the record, and there is more to do, and we will do it. And just finally, Madam Chairman, I'd just like to thank the Labour Party for their wonderful birthday card that they decided to spend money on and send to us. It was wonderful. And I noticed that since they sent this to me, their numbers detracted by a third. I don't know. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Are there any questions on the leader's report? Councillor Major.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Congratulations on your new role. I was a little surprised by the leader's declaration of victory over the pothole. Especially given the state of the roads still, and particularly at the end of winter, given the case that he's declared victory and all this extra funding he's going to deliver, can he guarantee that we won't face the same state of our roads next winter to our residents?
Yes, I think I can guarantee that. We're in a far better state than we were in the previous year. And we're going to be spending an equal amount of money this year on potholes. It won't resolve all potholes because potholes do come about. However, there is a reduction, a serious reduction in potholes. We've had 20 years of underfunding and not spending the right money in the right places from not just from the government, but from the previous administration. We are changing that.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Major? No. Okay, Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased that Councillor Graves has mentioned funding, actually, because I think he referred to a record 60 million spent this year. Would you agree, Councillor Graves, that the only reason you've been able to spend that much on our roads is because the previous administration negotiated a devolution deal, which coincidentally you opposed at every single step of the way? And don't you think it's hypocritical to do so now that you're lauding and claiming credit for all of that investment that we managed to bring to Derbyshire's roads?
Councillor Graves.
Absolutely not. You negotiated what? At the end of the day, we had the regional mayor come into office, and the regional mayor had money coming in from government, money that was already supposed to be spent in Derbyshire, as well as other counties, but wasn't being spent. The only thing that the mayor has done is managed to focus that money into the councils. You had no part of it. I mean, in fact, your government could have spent more money on potholes and roads when they were in government, but you decided not to. That's for you to understand.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Dale? Councillor Reid.
A question for the leader. Isn't it true that actually Reform's landslide sort of sea change we had at the last election when we were put in actually forced the government to change the funding and actually look, because one of our prime promises was we will fix the roads. And up until that point, nothing had come from previous Labour or Conservative governments. But actually, I think, isn't it true, leader, that this actually came from the pressure that Reform had put on both previous administrations to actually put the investment into county councils like Derbyshire to fix the state of our roads?
I think I might agree with him. But yes, it is. A lot of the changes that this government has made has been because of Reform pressure in all sorts of areas. And you will notice that it doesn't matter when there are elections, Reform keep winning.
Councillor McGuinness.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Councillor Graves about an article from May 2024, so a year before Reform took office. Green Lane in Uckbrook, which is in Councillor Major's patch, was named, and he's laughing, was named the worst road in Derbyshire. And I'd just like to ask Councillor Graves, who was in charge for 7 years and who was the county councillor for about 15 years at that point in that area?
It was the Conservatives.
McGuinness got a supplementary question.
I think we'll just have one person speaking at a time. I'm not sure we're quite that efficient yet. Councillor McGuinness, have you got a supplementary question? Any more questions?
No.
No? Okay, so item 9, petitions, and no petitions have been received. So we'll move on to item 10, which is committee memberships, schedule of meetings and outside body appointments for 2006-2027. Councillor Graves, can you...
Councillor Hill is taking it.
Oh, Councillor Hill, take that. Can you...
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the recommendations of the report with the agreed to amend the spelling mistake from Councillor N. Hill to Councillor C. Hill, please.
Could I have a seconder?
Councillor Graves.
Councillor Graves, that's Councillor Graves to second that. Are there any questions or contributions from members? Excellent. Councillor Graves to close then.
Councillor Hill.
Councillor Hill, sorry. No? Okay, let's move to the vote. Okay, that's been approved. Yeah. Item 11 is the notification of portfolios holders and membership of the Cabinet. So, Councillor Graves, can you please move to the report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members will be aware that on 8th of May I announced changes to my Cabinet team reflecting 1 year of experience in administration and our priorities going forward. Councillor Stephen Reid now takes on the role of the Deputy Leader. A new portfolio has been created for the local government reorganisation and transformation, recognising the significant work ahead of us as we reshape local government in this county. I want to record my thanks to the outgoing Cabinet members for their service and commitment over the past year. I move these recommendations.
Can I have a seconder, please? So are there any questions or contributions from the members?
Councillor Hart.
Okay, Councillor Hart, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations. I can quite understand, I think, some of the names on the portfolios have been changed, and I quite understand that. I mean, who'd want a portfolio that starts with potholes? You're on a back foot straight away. But I'm not sure whether amazed, disappointed, cannot believe it, that the portfolio name of the portfolio that I managed for the last 8 years has actually been changed from health and communities to communities and safety. This portfolio is all about health. It's mandatory. We have a director of public health. If you look at the budget, it's all, practically everything is public health. If you look at the list of the responsibilities on that portfolio, again, it's public health. I understand, you know, community safety is very important and communities, but they are a very small portion of that portfolio. So I cannot believe we look after, from birth to death, all manner of things in there. And I mean, we've already had one cabinet meeting since the portfolio was changed, and there were all, straight away a couple of health cabinet reports. You know, there are a lot of them, so I just cannot understand. I'm absolutely so disappointed that health has just disappeared off the name of that portfolio, and I really do think that that perhaps ought to be reconsidered and changed. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions from any of the members?
Does Councillor Graves want to close?
Do you want to close, Councillor Graves?
You want me to respond? I find it quite incredible. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Hart. Just to be clear that the health side of things is still included in the cabinet portfolio, but for you to raise the fact the name of a portfolio is your biggest concern of this council is rather unbelievable, really. It's, you know, I can't understand why you think a cabinet role name is the most important thing that you should be discussing at this moment. As for potholes, we put potholes in the original name of the cabinet portfolio to focus on the fact that potholes was important. That's why we did it. That's why SEND is also within a cabinet portfolio. Although potholes is still important to us, we have done a great deal of work through Councillor Hill. So, you know, we do recognise these things, and we try to react and respond to what the people out there actually want.
Can we move to the vote?
Yep. Let's move to the vote then, please. Okay, thank you. That's been approved. And let's move to item 12. So the appointment of the Executive Director of Children's Services. So Councillor McGuinness to move to the report, please.
Yes, I'm very happy to note the appointment of our new Executive Director of Children's Services, Jenny Lingwell, who will be starting with us on the 27th of July. We had a cross-party panel of Reform, Conservative and Labour councillors, and we were very, very impressed with her. She's got great experience in Rotherham and Wakefield, and I would just also like to pay tribute to Alison Noble, who inherited a very difficult ship, and she has worked extremely hard, and things are turning around, and I'd just like to pay a tribute to her. And we look forward to moving onwards and upwards as a council and working together to improve the best outcomes for our children and young people.
Can you just confirm you're formally moving the recommendation? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Okay. Are there any questions or contributions from members on this? Okay, Councillor Dale, please.
Yeah, do agree with Councillor McGuinness that the candidate was very, very, very strong, and look forward to working with Jenny when she arrives to the council. But also just to say a huge thank you to Ali for all of your service for Derbyshire. I think when I first started in 2017, you were the service director there and obviously supported me a huge amount with getting to grips with the cabinet portfolio and obviously we've worked together very closely ever since. So all the very best for your for the future and you only live very close now, so I'll hopefully see you down at the pub at some point soon. So yeah, thank you very much, Ali. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, Councillor McGuinness to close then, please.
Yeah, again, great work, Alison Noble, and we're looking forward to moving on to the future and getting the best outcomes.
Thank you. Can we move to the vote? That's okay, thank you, that's been approved. Item 13 is to report a minor change to the Constitution. So, Councillor Whitbread, would you please move to the report?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and well done. Congratulations, and thank you as well to the former chairman as well. It's been a great year working with you both. Now, this report is simply for noting by Council today. It brings the Constitution in line with the new LPGS policy, as well as adjusting the member allowances scheme appendix and naming the new cabinet responsibilities. It's quite run-of-the-mill. I would like to take this opportunity to encourage anybody who hasn't already looked into the LPGS, get looking into it. It might be for you, it might not, but it's on you to have a look at it and speak to the team, see if it is right for you. And I also really want to thank, and I've been advised by the individual who has done this not to, the officer who has put the red text into the report pack, because I think that really, it means something to me, it's transparency. Not everybody dives into the Constitution like people of my inclination do, and I appreciate any efforts made by officers or anybody else to make it more accessible, more transparent to not only the other members in the room, but to the people out there in the public, so they can pick up this pack and know exactly what we're doing at a glance. So to that officer who doesn't wish to be named, I would like to thank them and hope to see it again in the future. So thank you for that. I move the recommendations as written, and thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Have a seconder for that, please. And are there any questions or contributions from members on this? Fantastic. Right. So, Councillor Whitbread, can you close? Yep. Let's move to the vote. Okay, that's been approved. And we'll just take a moment, please, just to check our phones are all off in the chambers. Thank you. Right, item 14, elected member questions, and they're printed on pages 67 to 68. Questions and answers have been published and will be taken as read. Question 1 is from Councillor Kinsella. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Hill, please?
Do, Chair. And also, if I give my congratulations to yourself, and I trust all meetings will be this short and going forward. So, looking forward to that. Yeah. So just to recap, my question was the latest casualty report shows a continued increase in killed and seriously injured on our roads, and it's almost doubled since 2020, shockingly, and it's way above target and it's way above national trends. And my question was, what is the cabinet member doing to make our roads safer? And Councillor Hill very kindly responded, and I'd like to thank her as well for meeting with me and have time for that. And also just to say that in her response, she talks about context and how important that is, and I'd just like to agree with that, specifically drawing members' attention to the fact that Derbyshire's own data shows a 60% decrease in collisions when speed limits have been reduced from 30 to 20 miles an hour. Almost 1/3 of road nationally are at 20 miles an hour, and rural authorities... I've got 150 words.
He's telling us about more information. Has he got a question?
I have
Councillor Hill.
150 words to respond, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay, do you have a question, Councillor Kinsella?
I have 137 words here. I have the right to speak to 150 words.
Go ahead.
So I'm speaking to 137 words. Does that work, Councillor Graves?
Councillor want to ask a supplementary question.
Yeah, so you do have the right to ask a supplementary question, not to make a statement. So could we get
but I also have the right to use my limit of 150 words. And there is a question here, but I have my right to use 150 words.
Okay, let's get to the question then, please. Thank you.
Well, I'll finish what I'm saying, because I'm within 150 words. As I was saying, almost a third of roads nationally are 20 miles an hour, and rural authorities such as Lancashire and Gloucestershire have, in specific areas, following consultation, agreed to introduce these speed limits. So, the question: will Derbyshire follow these good practice examples, or does the diktats from Councillor Hill's party nationally, who regularly speak out against these life-saving schemes, prevent her from acting in making significant reductions in road collisions?
Thank you, Councillor Kinsella. But I would like to remind you in the future, it is the words you quoted is correct, but it is to ask a question. There was making a statement in there. So in future, please, just a question. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's ironic that we've got councillors in this chamber that think they know better than highways officers. And I put that in my answer, that it's got to be looked at in context, because we've got a council full of officers that know what they're doing. And I will only go... I'm sorry, the fact that Councillor Kinsella laughed when I said that our highways officers know what they're doing, that really is, again, ironic to me. I'm very confident in the highway service. I'm very confident in the decisions that they make. I will be following their advice on the decisions that they make, and it has got to be looked at context. We will not blanket 20 mile an hour Derbyshire, because that isn't what voters want.
Question 3 is from Councillor Snowdon. Do you have a supplementary question, please, for Councillor Wood? My apologies, sorry. Councillor Hatchett, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Hill? You don't? Okay. Up you get, Councillor Snowdon. We just want to make sure you get your squats in for the day.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your new post, and it's proving to be interesting so far. I have got a supplementary question that I'd like to ask. So, connected with the recycling of waste materials in Derbyshire, annual recycling figures for English councils show that the proportion of waste materials recycled in Derbyshire has declined in the last few years. Derbyshire now stands at number 105 out of 321 English councils, recycling 45% of waste materials. The best councils in England achieve far greater amounts of recycling, with rates up to 64%. The County Council has a responsibility to encourage recycling and improve the performance of recycling in Derbyshire. Improving efficiency isn't just about cutting costs. Anyone can reduce frontline services to save money, but an effective council would improve efficiency to save money without cutting frontline services. Year on year, the residents of Derbyshire have seen council tax increases, and yet frontline services are now being reduced. So will the Cabinet member commit to improving Derbyshire's rates of recycling rather than just providing a culture of pay more, get less? Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you very much for your question, Councillor Snowdon. And it's really timely. It gives me the opportunity to point out that reducing, reusing and recycling is the responsibility of all of us, of all our residents. And in order to improve our recycling rates, I would ask everyone and the districts and the boroughs to continue to lobby and encourage everyone to do their part to bring those items to the various centres and use their bins of the various types to separate as I do, I have absolutely hardly anything in my black bin anymore. So delighted to get the new food bins, because now I can put all the extra bits, chicken bones, eggshells and so forth in that. And that is saving us millions of pounds in the black bin disposals, different coloured bins in different places, I know. But also the landfill tax for that which is unrecyclable, uncompostable, etc. The landfill taxes are increasing year on year by government. So it's not... We deal with what is brought to us in the ways that it is brought to us. We can't do any more about that. What we do with the food waste, it's going to the anaerobic digestion, which will create a usable compost, etc. So please, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to ask everyone to use all the segregation methods and to sort their waste and put everything in the right things as much as possible and get those black bin contents down to nothing. Thank you.
Question 4 is from Councillor Clark. Do you have any supplementary questions for Councillor Barnes?
I do, and congratulations, Chair, in your new role.
Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Barnes for your answer, although it seems a shame I had to ask a question at full council to get you to answer my email. I am interested, however, to hear about the adult social care improving its residential brokerage function to help residents and strengthen the council's oversight of costs in the care home market. Do you envisage that this improved brokerage function will reduce and not accelerate the current unpalatable operational policy of moving elderly residents from care homes they are comfortable in to a cheaper one miles away, as happened in the case of a local resident in New Mills who had lived his whole life in that town but has now been moved?
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, the Councillor Clark. Madam Chair, there's many people inside this room that want to paint a picture that adult care is in crisis. It's not. It's well managed. It is managed. The officers are doing a fantastic job. We have seen inside the last couple of weeks where the gables inside the High Peaks has closed. Now the council staff have gone above and beyond to offer assistance there. And I would like to say, well, thank you, to that staff. I'm not aware of the particular case which Councillor Clark's referred to, and so I will supply a response in writing or in person. Sorry. But the constraints that we see, especially inside the High Peaks, is not about beds, not just about beds. It's also like other issues as well. Staffing, locality, people getting older and living longer, and increased needs. There's numerous factors we need to consider when making difficult choices. But I will respond back to Councillor Clark either in writing or in person. Thank you.
Thank you. And question 5 is from Councillor Dale. Do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Hill?
Yes, Chair. Can I thank Councillor Hill for her response? As you may be aware, the previous administration here at County Hall forced the Labour-run District Council to conduct a public consultation on the proposed signalisation of this junction. The results were demonstrated that residents were overwhelmingly opposed, citing concerns over congestion and safety. So can I therefore, or can the Cabinet member therefore confirm that this council will respect the views of local residents? And can you categorically rule out that the County Council will agree to any scheme to signalise this junction? Thank you, Chair.
I can't categorically say that we won't rule that out because that's part of our full A61 feasibility study. But I hear the residents' concerns and I have those same concerns as well. So that's something that I'm taking back to Highways and now aligning the regeneration team with the Highways team. That response hopefully will be aligned as well.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to item 16 now, notice of motions, and there's only 2 for today. So the first of which is from Councillor Melandra Smith. Would you like to move your motion? Hiding over there.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you. And thanks to Councillor Adams for his year in service. Today, I rise to ask this Council to support the principle of reopening the Peaks and Dales railway line between Buxton and Matlock. A proposal which I believe could deliver enormous long-term benefits to residents, businesses and the wider economy of Derbyshire and the Peak District National Park. This is not about restoring an old railway for sentimental reasons. It is about modern transport, economic resilience and giving isolated rural communities inside the national park better options for the future. The Peaks and Dales line was not a minor rural branch line, but part of an important Midland Railway main line connecting London, the East Midlands and Manchester through the heart of the Peak District. It carried express passenger services, freight and holiday traffic for over a century and provided one of the best strategic cross-country rail routes through the Peak District. Campaigners rightly point out that this route was never specifically identified by Dr. Beeching for complete closure, yet its loss left the East Midlands and North West significantly less well connected for generations. The feasibility study concludes, which has been done by Peaks and Dales line group, that reopening the route is technically feasible with no major prohibitive barriers identified at this stage. Only around 11.5 miles of railway would need to be reinstated in order to reconnect nearly 50 miles of existing rail corridor between Manchester and Derby via Buxton, Bakewell and Matlock. This is not a small local project. It is a nationally and regionally significant infrastructure proposal connecting 2 major economic regions, the North West and the East Midlands, with benefits extending well beyond Derbyshire itself. And the opportunities for Buxton in particular are extremely significant. At present, Buxton is effectively a terminus station, serving only northbound journeys. Reopening the Peaks and Dales line would transform Buxton from the end of a line into a through station once again, reconnecting it directly into wider regional rail networks. That change alone could be transformative to the local economy, creating new opportunities to grow both the daytime and the nighttime economy, increase visitor dwell time, support hospitality businesses and improve access for workers, tourists and residents alike. The study estimates the economic benefits of between £2 and £8 billion gross value added by 2040. It forecasts the reduction of up to 4.3 million car trips every year through modal shift rail, alongside substantial carbon savings and reduced pressure on heavily congested roads, including the A6, the A623 and the A515. For residents, the proposal could provide vastly improved connectivity across the Peak District and beyond. Communities including Buxton, Bakewell, Chinley, Roseley and Matlock would once again be connected by rail, improving access to employment, education, healthcare and leisure opportunities without forcing people to rely entirely on private cars. That matters enormously in a rural county where transport isolation can be a real barrier, particularly for younger people, older residents and those without access to a vehicle. Better connectivity also helps prevent the long-term drift of younger generations away from Peak District communities in search of opportunity elsewhere. For businesses, the benefits could be transformative. The study argues that reopening the line would improve visitor access to Peak District towns without simply adding more traffic to already overwhelmed roads. It could increase footfall for cafes, pubs, restaurants, hotels, shops and heritage attractions across the corridor, while supporting inward investment and strengthening tourism economies throughout Derbyshire. And this point is crucial. Every successful promotion of the Peak District National Park currently means more cars on the roads, because there is no viable high-capacity non-road transport alternative crossing the national park. We are effectively encouraging additional vehicle movements every time we promote tourism, heritage or leisure in the peaks. Many of the Peak District's most popular destinations sit directly on or near the former railway route, including Thornbridge Hall, Haddon Hall, Chatsworth House, Bakewell and Buxton itself. Rail connectivity could allow tourism growth to continue without simply overwhelming the roads, car parks and our town centres. The freight opportunities are also significant. The study highlights the potential for increased quarry freight movement by rail, reducing heavy vehicle pressure on local roads. Every freight train can remove up to 76 HGV movements from the road network. The project team also explored modern freight opportunities, including parcel roll-on, roll-off services, which could improve access to goods and strengthen regional logistics links while reducing road congestion. Now, I recognise that concerns will be raised regarding the future of the Monsell Trail and the White Peak Loop. Critics will argue that the existing Monsell Trail is itself a major tourism asset and should remain untouched. Undoubtedly, the trail is very popular and I've enjoyed walking it many times with my children. I am willing, however, to support its reinstatement as a railway because it is precisely the lack of an efficient rail option crossing the Peak District National Park that has pushed so many people to exclusively use cars to access its most popular attractions, many of which are actually sited along the route of the railway. And Monsell Trail is not the only Peak Park railway line repurposed as a walking trail. For example, the Tissington Trail running from Ashbourne to Bakewell. Peaks and Dales Line Group argues that reinstating rail should not simply be seen as a loss for the existing trail, but as an opportunity to create a broader and better connected recreational network across White Peak, linking walking, cycling, settlements and railway stations more effectively than the current single corridor arrangement. And I think that balance is important. This vision is increasingly being recognised politically. The project now has the support of 26 members of Parliament from across the route corridor who have formally communicated their support to the Secretary of State for Transport and continue to work with Peaks and Dales Line team as the proposal develops. The next stage of work, the strategic outline business case, will examine in greater detail how these proposals could be delivered, how recreational access can be maintained and enhanced, and how the line can support future passenger and freight needs across the region. Chair, my motion today is very simple. It asks that we recognise the strategic significance of this opportunity and support the Peaks and Dales Line Group in the continued development and investigation of this nationally important scheme. Therefore, I propose that Council publicly supports the reinstatement of the Peaks and Dales railway line between Matlock and Buxton, that the Cabinet supports the reinstatement of the Peaks and Dales railway line between Matlock and Buxton and liaises with the project team, that the Cabinet advocates for the scheme within regional bodies, especially the East Midlands Combined County Authority and at national level, and helps promote awareness and engagement with the project among local communities, stakeholders and residents, encouraging participation in the consultation process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And who will be seconding that? Okay, Councillor Harvey, do you have anything to add to that?
Congratulations on your appointment. I have great pleasure in seconding Councillor Smith's motion to reinstate the former British Railways line between Matlock, Manchester and Buxton. And for those of you who aren't aware, This was a main line, not a branch line. It was a major line throughout our country. The railway link was withdrawn in 1968, the same year that steam traction was also withdrawn from our great railway system. The closure in 1968 also coincided with many more railway cuts across the country due to the infamous beaching cuts. It was a bad decision to close the railways. Bad because we now know it was done for all the wrong reasons. Local communities were cut off from being able to get to towns and cities. Farmers had great difficulty in moving livestock to market. Children from travelling to school, and for the Peak District, it meant that limestone freight was forced onto the roads, creating thousands of journeys with large trucks. By reopening the Peak and Dales Railway, we have the opportunity to help right a serious wrong and create a better future for the citizens and businesses of Derbyshire. Reform is not always given credit for its positive views on the environment, but who amongst us cannot see and support the opportunity to greatly reduce limestone freight traffic from the congested roads and back onto the railways where they belong? This would reduce greatly carbon emissions and make the roads much safer. Great Britain, and Derbyshire in particular, needs growth. And by reopening the railway, we can create more opportunities for new and established businesses to develop and grow, which will give Derbyshire and our young people a future they rightly deserve. Derbyshire is renowned for its as being a beautiful county. The Peaks and Dales are legendary. We now have within our grasp the chance to travel on what in the past was one of the most scenic railways in Great Britain. Tourists will flock to Derbyshire to get a glimpse of the outstanding scenery. Local businesses in Matlock, Bakewell and Buxton will see much needed additional business from the tourists that come. There have been several reopenings of railways in the recent years that were closed back in the 1960s, and each and every one of these railways has seen passenger numbers using the trains absolutely huge and far beyond their original predictions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Are there any speakers to this motion? There's a few of you. Let's go to Councillor Gourlay.
Madam Chairman, I don't know whether there will ever be money from central government to reopen all of the lines cut by beaching. But there are, dozens, hundreds of these small lines that would be queuing up for the money if it ever existed. And I don't think that the Peaks and Dales line would be top of that list. Certainly the feasibility study that we've all seen, because whenever a new member in the area is elected, MEMRAC comes to us and says, look, this is the project that is going to revitalise the Peak District. But looking through many of the claims from those feasibility studies, they don't stack up. I'm sure that in time, Reform members will read it more closely and see that the claims of economic activity certainly aren't there. If this line is going to do anything, then it would be a tourist line. And that the alternative, the VLR line, from Buxton to the start of the Monsell Trail, would produce the majority of those benefits at a fraction of the cost. The sad thing is that to favour this impractical, expensive line, Reform has to say, let's close the Monsell Trail. There are hints in the feasibility study, that we could find an alternative route. But that alternative route is walking alongside a dual carriageway. It is not an alternative to the beautiful Monsell Trail that people have now grown up with and can no longer remember this line being in use. So I'd say if people outside in the community wish to save the Monsell Trail, the choice is clear. They should join our campaign to stop reform closing the Monsell Trail.
Councillor Hobson, please.
Thank you, Chair, and pass on my congratulations to you and your deputy, and thanks to the outgoing chairman. I was slightly bemused by seeing this motion come forward from this administration, because I've got a few points that this current administration has already done. On the 16th of October 2025, Cabinet approved the regeneration pipeline and a list of prioritised projects, which include sections of the key cycle network and work relating to the active travel master plans. It also approved the allocation of the 2025-26 East Midlands Combined County Authority funding for market towns and active travel programmes totalling just over £2.8 million. Derbyshire County Council has moved up to level 2 and is now eligible for increased funding opportunities and technical support for Active Travel England. The total award for Derbyshire over the 4-year period starting 26 and 27 will be £6.5 million, approximately 3 times higher than if the authority had remained at level 1. I'm also surprised that the council are unaware that the draft drawings to extend the White Peak Loop from Roseley that Derbyshire Dales District Council and Derbyshire County Council are currently working on, the plans are drawn, have been shared with me, Roseley Parish Council and the Peak District National Park. This will deliver major benefits for businesses, residents and visitors, including health, leisure and commuting. The White Peak Loop is hugely popular, recording over 383,000, that's 383,000 users in 2024. That's 294,000 pedestrians and 75,000 on cycles, with a daily average of over 1,000 people. We need to safeguard this multi-use route because its current success, economic impact on local businesses and broad appeal far outweigh the case for rail reinstatement. I'm just going to read you something that somebody sent to me. This is a long-established member of the Peak District National Park and a current Derbyshire Dales councillor, when this has been discussed, as Councillor Gourlay says, on many previous occasions. And I do have permission to quote. One of the points was that some of the stations were so out of the way, e.g. Great Longston, Millersdale, Hassop, Monsaldale, that nobody would use them because they don't have any public transport infrastructure to get where they want to go and would just all get off at Bakewell or stick to their cars. The other proposal was to share it between walkers and trains. Just imagine riding a horse or pushing a pushchair through one of the tunnels when there's a fully laden freight train coming the other way. The other idea put forward was that it would take quarry traffic off the roads, which the quarries said wasn't viable. We must remain committed to delivering the White Peak Loop, protecting and enhancing this much-loved traffic-free asset for hundreds of thousands of people per year. And echoing Councillor Graves' comments in his leaders' report, not waste any taxpayer money on this futile plan. I urge you to reject this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Councillor Wilton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Clearly, I'm from a ward at the south of Derbyshire where we don't have any trains, but I'm actually going to speak partly on behalf of Councillor George, who can't be here, and, you know, the details she's looked at are her facts and figures. Councillor Harvey is correct. The Peaks and Dales rail line was not just a branch line. It was a section of the London Midland Main Line Railway, a vital piece of our national jigsaw of railway connections. If you look at a map now, there's a big hole in the middle. There's a vital piece of the jigsaw missing. And that's a problem because it makes it hard to visit the Peak District unless you come by car. So, of course, we see the Peak District swamped with cars, parking all over the place, using up police resource, locals getting blocked in, and farmers. Queue, lots of hand-wringing from the National Park, red routes, traffic wardens, and lots of tickets. It's not anybody wants that from a day in the countryside in Derbyshire. It's certainly not what local residents want either. They suffer more than anyone with the traffic and inconsiderate parking. But no one has proposed any real alternatives to deal with the scale of the 13 million visitors a year. Yet the feasibility study on the Peaks and Dales gives conservative estimate between 1 million and 4 million car journeys saved by visitors. At the same time, it improves connections from residents across Derbyshire. Just 11.5 miles of track being reinstated would give a full rail route of 50 miles from Derby to Manchester. That opens up opportunities for people who struggle to afford a car, for young people who need to travel to find jobs, plus it's sustainable travel, but don't want to leave Derbyshire because, like me, they're born and bred and they love living here. And it opens up economic opportunities by linking the East Midlands with thriving Manchester and the North West again. That's why the feasibility study shows gross value added of between 2 billion and 8 billion by 2040. That's the sort of investment return that projects like HS2 and the Peak Cluster Pipeline can only dream of. It's not only the towns and villages on the route that gain, like Bakewell, Buxton, Darley-Dale and Chinley, or overrun with cars and traffic on lovely summer days, but the other towns on the Derwent Valley line gain as well: Derby, Duffield, Belper, Ambergate, Wat Stanwell, Cromford and Matlock. Instead of there being a back service on a branch line, they become stops on a main connecting route between Derby and Manchester. This joins up our county and our region, and it can deliver real improvements to opportunities for the people of Derbyshire, a welcome reduction in traffic, improving air quality and reducing emissions at the same time as boosting the economy. Now that the East Midlands Combined Authority has responsibility for strategic transport, we have the opportunity to fight for the connectivity that Derbyshire needs. We mustn't let those billions of investment be spent on cities which already have far better public transport than people in rural areas can even dream of. This rail line was taken from the people of Derbyshire. We need to make sure that we get it back. It's an excellent motion. The independent group will be supporting it. I also think it's worth noting, because I'm a Rural Action Derbyshire trustee, the recent ACRE report has shown that there is now that MCA has to, all mayors across the country, take note of rural and coastal communities. So I would urge, when we get in touch with MCA, that new priority may help this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wheelton. Councillor Millward next, please.
Yeah, I'll keep this short and sweet. As a trail cyclist, I'm going to be saddened as many other trail users would be. However, the relief this will have on traffic, and also the benefit it will bring to local businesses and growth within Derbyshire, would surely benefit Derbyshire as a whole. So let me leave you with this question: will the benefits outweigh the costs? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kinsella, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this debate kind of shows this chamber at its best, because I certainly came in to this discussion with a particular viewpoint. However, having listened to the views around the room, I'm now not so clear on whether that viewpoint was the correct one to have. But I do welcome the motion, and I do think getting people out of their cars is really important. But whether this is the best way or not, I don't know now. I think it was interesting listening to Councillor Hobson talk about the White Peak Loop. And while I welcome that and welcome the work that's been done by Derbyshire in developing that, I do have concerns that it's a facility where people drive out to it, use it, and then drive back again, and that does worry me. And Councillor Hobson also spoke about active travel and the amount of money, and I know this is not a Derbyshire problem as such, but the amount of money that's committed to active travel, and I think she spoke around 3 million. Well, that's a tiny amount of money that we spend on active travel. And I think the point that was made over here about value for money, I mean, I just wonder what we could get for a return for the amount of investment into this railway by investing in other much smaller community-based projects. So I do have some major concerns as to how I'm going to vote. I'm no longer as clear as I was about that. But one of the things I do really welcome, and I think it was a really well argued and considered motion, but I do particularly welcome the recognition of the impact of carbon emissions. And not only did the motion talk about the impact of carbon emissions, but it actually quantified those. And I thought that was really, really useful. And it is something that I think maybe something Councillor Wood would like to consider when bringing forward her environmental strategy to this chamber, because there is certainly no consideration of that level of detail in the environmental strategy. Maybe that's something that the administration wants to or should reflect on.
Thank you, Councillor Kinsella. Councillor Burfoot, please.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you and the others. This has been a really difficult one for me. Obviously, I represent a town that's at the other end of this line from Buxton proposed rail link. I'm sure we all want to see low carbon sustainable travel solutions everywhere to combat in some small way the effects of climate change. I would imagine even climate change deniers would agree with me on that one. First of all, some points I'd like to just highlight given the motion that we've actually got before us. The motion states that the Peak District National Park Authority has recognised the need for sustainable transport solutions and has previously supported rail reinstatement in principle. Have we found out there's nothing in this report that tells us that is still their view? I do suspect not. The view of MEMRAP is that the Peaks and Dales line would provide the only viable high-capacity, low-carbon transport solution. Have other solutions been investigated? Maybe not. What about electric-powered, high-frequency buses? They would be a lot cheaper and more likely to actually happen. Some of the rail, if it was to be reinstated, would actually take people to really remote locations. So buses, you know, if we went for electric buses, they could actually take residents to visitors to where they actually want to go. Some of these stops on the line, what do they do when they get there? So I think that would put people off and they'll still get in the car. So we've got to come up with practical solutions. I also question the suggestion that there are no significant technical, environmental, planning or delivery constraints to this plan. No mention of the critical work involved in the reopening and investigation of the Haddon Tunnel. I suspect that could completely negate the whole project. No mention of how the reinstatement can be delivered in a way that enhances the existing recreational assets, particularly the Monsell Trail. No mention that in 2022 the then Rail Minister rejected MEMRAP's proposal and it was put in the reject bin. Is it going to be any different? Coming back to the Monsell Trail, this is a crucial consideration. The trail is one of the most popular walking and cycling facilities in the Peak District and indeed in the whole country, open to all and implemented with support from Derbyshire County Council and a grant funding of £2 million from the then coalition government. I suspect that the reopening of the line and the trail may be incompatible. That makes me quite sad, but I think that we've got to deal with the truth here. I have asked the Peak Park Authority and I was given this quote, that whilst they recognise the value of rail as a means of mass transport,
The belief is that the current Monsell Trail delivers many benefits to its users that outweigh the benefits of reinstatement of the railway. Let's be clear, we all regret the full closure of the Matlock to Buxton line in 1968, and we all want to see low carbon transport solutions, but at what cost, especially to the environment and to leisure. HS2 had feasibility studies over many years and the cost escalated enormously. So to conclude, we have to balance the benefits of the rail line against the loss of a traffic-free, safe walking way, the loss of the Monsell Trail as we know it, loss to habitat, environmental and landscape impact, and very importantly, prohibitive and escalating costs. And in fact, one of the things I would ask is, there's no mention in this report who's actually going to pay for it. Is it totally the taxpayer? Is it totally private funding? I'm not sure. I think it would, to be honest, I think it would be a rail service that many people won't actually be able to afford. They'd be much better going on frequent electric buses. The idea of reopening the rail line is very appealing. It really appeals to me until you look deeper into it. So there are too many questions not answered, and as such, this motion, as it stands, is not one that I can support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burford. Councillor Snowdon, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think in general, this motion is very well written, a lot of detail and background in it. I appreciate it from that point of view. And initially, I was looking at supporting it as it stands, but in general, improvements in public transport could bring the environmental results that you mentioned in the motion itself. We need to reduce congestion, give easier access to the peaks for people and obtain better air quality. We need more people to use public transport generally in society, and improved public transport options will give a boost to tourist numbers in the peak. In the general picture, public transport in the UK is pretty appalling. We've got infrequent bus schedules that let people down and don't come with sufficient frequency. We've got expensive, poor quality trains on a lot of routes, and there's nothing in this to say that the trains will be of any better quality crossing the peaks. To get more people to use public transport, it needs to be better, cheaper, more joined up and more accessible. This proposed reopening of the line could be a step in the right direction. However, there are still too many open questions for me to be able to support the motion as it stands. Where does the money come from? Who's going to provide the funding for this? Is it going to be a private project, or are we expecting governments to provide the funding for it? How disruptive will it be? In other words, what's going to happen in terms of construction, of reinstatement of the rails? How long is it going to take, and how much disruption will it cause to local residents? The other thing that it mentions in here are a lot of benefits in terms of the 2 to 8 billion that will be recovered. But where's this come from? Where are the demand figures? Has this been a desktop study? What sort of depth of information is being used to establish that there'd actually be a demand for this service? Or would we just be building a white elephant across the peaks? I believe that there is more information that we need before we could take a decision to support this plan. And I think it could be returned to the council once more information is known, and we could take another vote on it then. So on that basis, I can't support the motion as it stands now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snowdon. Councillor Groby next, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Statistics and surveys show that, in fact, the number of people who can actually get out of their cars to use public transport is very limited. Numerous people, no matter how good it was, simply won't do it unless it's door to door, especially larger families. The Monsell Trail in its present format is the most popular walking and cycling route in the Peak District. It drives tourists into the surrounding villages such as Bakewell and Buxton, bringing massive reserve into the whole area. Furthermore, there is an advanced plans to create a very light railway from Buxton to the start of the Monsell Trail, joining it at Blackwell Mill, a mere 3 miles outside of Buxton. That would carry bikes and passengers from Buxton straight onto the Monsell Trail, avoiding the dangerous A6. An absolute bonus for Buxton residents and visitors can come on the mainline train and get safely into the much-loved Monsell Trail. I will not be voting for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ford next, please.
Thank you, Chair, and again, many congratulations and congratulations to you as well, Councillor Reaney. It's an interesting motion, certainly is that. But, you know, a lot of the talk about taking traffic off the roads, bringing more people in, it doesn't take traffic off the roads, it just redistributes that traffic. Because where the traffic is going to be going to is the hubs at the end, the bell end, if you imagine it like a dumbbell, you have the ends at the where the stations are, where all the traffic will be going to congest. So it's not taking traffic from the middle bit, it's bringing traffic in to the end bits where the stations are. They talk about taking traffic, or HGV traffic away. Again, it doesn't make sense, because who is going to take this stone when it gets to the end of the railhead? Traffic has to go to, lorries will be taking the stones from the railhead to distribute all over the various areas where the particular stones are required. So it doesn't take traffic off the road, it just redistributes the traffic. In South Derbyshire, and we've got many South Derbyshire members here, we had a great scheme going forward called the Ivanhoe Line. I don't know if many members here understand what the Ivanhoe Line was. It was from Leicester through to Burton. That was well worth supporting because it didn't destroy anything that was there that was of value. The line's already there. It doesn't take away a beautiful walkway that's used by tens of thousands of people every year. It just needs reinstating. I'd much rather this council support efforts to get lines such as the Ivanhoe Line, which will be a massive benefit with tourism through the National Forest, other lines in the area, in the county where it will need very little to get going, with again very sustainable benefits, rather than taking away something that's beautiful. And don't forget, this county is under assault at the minute with developers, with solar farms, with many other schemes that are going to detract from the beauty of it. We don't need to be taking away something of beauty when we've got much more we can do, which will attract the people to the district and give far more environmental benefit. I won't be supporting this motion, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Dale, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree very much with the remarks that Councillor Ford has just made. It was an interesting use of the phrase bell end as well, but I won't cover that too much. I very much support the principle of rail. I understand some of the case behind this motion. I've had the meeting with the gentleman from MRAP, and I can understand that they are very passionate about it. But from my perspective, like my colleagues and like other members over on the other side of the chamber, I can't support this motion without a significantly better understanding of how it would impact on existing leisure assets like the infrastructure, like the Monsell Trail and the White Peak Loop, and what the alternatives would be, and how we could protect those assets in particular. And also, I really think, we can discuss and debate these kind of things all we like, but what do the local residents in these areas actually think? Have we communicated or consulted with residents in Matlock and Buxton and all of those villages in between about what they believe is the best? And also the wider users of the Monsell Trail and the White Peak Loop, have we consulted with them? So I think it's important that we don't make a decision that we think is best. I think we need to talk to our residents and find out what they actually think is best for their area, because they're the ones that are going to have to live with this route. And actually, will the benefit, a few people have made this point, but will the benefits actually be realised without much better public transport? I think it was Councillor Hobson who made the point that a lot of the smaller stops have no, buses. So you can get off at Thornbridge, for example, but you've got nowhere else to go from there. So you have to get back on and go back up to the next stop. And I think even actually with public transport, I'm still not convinced it will actually have the impact that people say it will have in terms of taking people out of their cars. And I think this speaks to a fundamental truth that actually people don't want to be off their cars. And I think we do need to be careful about taking this anti-car mentality. People have the right to go out in their vehicle if they want to. Yeah. And I think particularly with the Peak District, and I speak from personal experience, and I'm not afraid to say it, I enjoy driving through the Peak District. It is a nice thing to do. It's nice to go out with the family. The Peak District is there to be explored. I like going to places in the Peak District that I haven't been to before. And I think lots of residents would agree with me, actually. And you can only do that with a vehicle, with a car. You can do it to a lesser extent with buses, and I think buses are another good alternative, but we've trialled that with the routes that I can't remember the name of them now, but the routes that went around various areas, and they're a better alternative because the train route is a linear route. You can only go to those places on the stops. If you want to go and explore the Peak District, it's no use to you. So you're still going to go out in your car if you want to go anywhere that isn't remotely close to this route. So I really do think we have to just question, when we hear it's going to save X number of car journeys in the Peak District, I just don't buy it. It just doesn't make sense, and it just feels like it's an anti-car narrative that, we want to push people away, we want to nudge people away from using their cars when actually they have every right to. I also think, similar to what Councillor Ford said about the Ivanhoe line, there are much better schemes that went far further forward with the Restoring Your Railways Fund. The Barrow Hill line in my area was very, very close to being approved by the government. And then we had a new Labour government and they scrapped the whole thing. So we could be investing our time and energy into schemes that are actually much better, have a better return on investment. They are much easier to manage. The Barrow Hill line, for example, is just a cargo route. So it's already a running train route. All we have to do is just make it available for passengers by building a few stations on it. So there are much simpler solutions to improve rail connectivity in Derbyshire, and I think the Barrow Hill line or the Ivanhoe line would be a far better place to start than this. And I'd also ask, finally, I think, if we're going to support this motion, if the administration are going to support this motion, are they going to put any money behind this campaign to try and get it reinstated? And if so, can they tell me how much? Because I'd be interested to know, and I'm sure the residents of Derbyshire will be interested to know what money we're putting behind this scheme. Thank you, Chair.
Hear, hear.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I just want to congratulate you in your new role, and Councillor Rini as Vice Chair. I'm sure you'll both be great at your jobs. So, one of my comments, I've been listening to both sides of the argument in this, and the first big thing is that Reform was accused by the Conservative group that about wasting money. I just want to remind them of HS2. That was a Conservative thing. And what a waste of money that was. It's not even going to where its desired destination is going now. But it's going to be a relief of traffic all over Derbyshire, including Chesterfield, which will bring a lot of the heavy lorries off the roads in Chesterfield. And I'm sure I would have thought Councillor Snowden would have supported the motion to get more lorries off the roads, especially in and around Chesterfield, going to the motorways. So I'm a big supporter of getting this train line open to get some of this freight off Derbyshire roads. I used to go over to Manchester 2-3 times a week. I was always stuck behind lorries going to one of the quarries. But it's again the pollution. The pollution will come down, not in all of our towns and villages with a lot of these lorries off the roads. And again, saying about the electric buses, does Councillor know how heavy the electric buses are? Because I've been doing some research over the last few weeks. I can tell you, electric buses are 17 tonne. They're a lot heavier than the normal diesel buses. And one of the big problems I've got in my area with potholes on the bus routes because of the electric buses. So I fully support the train line's been open, it'll open up opportunities for Derbyshire people.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And Councillor Monkman, please.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations to you both on your appointment and to the members of the Cabinet as well. I'd like to speak on behalf of the residents of Belper. Belper's a fantastic place if people haven't been, and I would urge them to come. But we do have parking problems, and I can speak on behalf of some of the residents because they're very forthcoming in that, and that we do have parking problems. So any other option to bring more people into the town and indeed give connectivity to people, young people, accessibility issues, to be able to get out of the town and to go to different areas has got to be applauded and welcomed. So I would like to thank Councillor Smith for bringing this forward. It isn't, I've heard debate that it isn't a complete package, we don't know how it's going to be paid, but in principle, this is a movement forward for the residents and to, especially as we create more local plans, that's more housing, that's more things coming into the areas. Those people need to be able to move about. And if they can do that by train instead of using their cars, then that has to be welcomed. So I thank Councillor Smith for bringing forward the proposal. And for reasons of economy, environment, tourism and accessibility, then I will be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Somerville, please.
Sure. So I'm an engineer, so I deal with a lot of implementation. I've read a few spicy business cases in my time. Stuff where clearly it's been written to try and sell something and not. The key here, the key of all these specific things is the devil's in the detail. And this motion isn't about the detail, it's about the principle. Right? That's what it's about. And what I find bizarre is every one of you other parties in this room will sign any bit of paper when it comes to net zero to annihilate our economy, to keep people poor in the home, freezing to death because they cannot get energy at a reasonable price. But you will not, just for the principle, agree that possibly, if someone else provides the money, we'll be able to build a railway. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to sort of de-scope it by raising all these questions. It's a bit lame, to be honest, guys. Come on, can you do better than this?
Thank you. Can we hear from Councillor Pitsey, please?
Thank you. I hadn't actually been planning to speak on this motion, but after listening to the sort of debate that's been going on, I felt I needed to stand up and say a little bit. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Smith for bringing this motion forward. I read through it. I like what I sort of read. I then went and read further elsewhere. Again, it seemed like something that I would feel very positively we should be looking into in a more depth. And actually, again, this is what this is asking about, looking into it in more depth. It's not committing us fully to it. We've seen examples of rail reinstated elsewhere. We've got the Robin Hood line. We've had, if anybody's been up to the Scottish Borders, the Borders line into Edinburgh, very successful reinstatements. I'd certainly agree, bringing back the Ivanhoe line would be fantastic as well. I used to live in South Derbyshire and know that that would be fantastic. And actually, the idea of this coming back and the Ivanhoe, we could certainly have both. So quite simply, I'm surprised that I'm going to be not surrounded by members in other parts actually in supporting this motion, but I certainly will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pitsey. Can we hear from Councillor Furness now, please?
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations. I'd just like to highlight several points that have been raised during this discussion. I try and use my own real world experiences to try and actually summarise how I may actually go on certain topics. From my point of view, I'm an active runner. I tend to bore my fellow councillors with my conversations on running in particular. And so I find myself, in order to try and actually reduce my carbon footprint, to actually use local trains. Most recently, I actually took a trip up to Manchester, which actually required me to go on to the Langley Mill, from Langley Mill up to Sheffield, get off there, and then catch a train into Manchester. Brilliant at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was nice and quiet. By the time I actually came back, those carts were actually rammed packed. You were actually standing. So purely from a safety point of view, actually opening up this new line would hopefully alleviate the amount of transportation coming from Manchester into Derbyshire as a whole. as I mentioned, I am a runner, and I've actually run the Monsell Trail. I've run it actually on several times. I've actually done the half marathon. To be honest, you do it once, you don't want to do it again. It is a boring linear road piece of track, which, having run it several times, I can tell you in the summer, really, really busy. I have no doubt it is busy. But actually in the winter, when it's tipping down with rain, you don't see anyone. It's fairly eerie experience, to be honest. You know, ultimately, as a reform councillor, my personal opinion is that we as a council actually support the majority of people within Derbyshire. Whilst I appreciate that there will be select individuals along the line who may be affected, I think the actual opening up the Monsell Trail in general to rail traffic is a benefit to the more people in Derbyshire than it actually will directly impact. So for that reason, I will put my support for this motion. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You want to speak? Okay, so Councillor Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. I only come in because I'd like to put forward two stats that haven't been mentioned in this debate, which I looked at during my previous role. Firstly, there is an internal report done by Derbyshire County Council officers about 20 years ago, which is separated from this current debate by time, obviously. And in that report, where it looked quite closely at this, it was interesting that it said at the time this line was not commercially viable. It ended, interestingly, by saying that if current population growth continues and traffic numbers, it would be viable by 2025, amazingly. That's a report that's open to, I suppose, the appropriate cabinet officers. So that report was written independently by Derbyshire Council officers and said that it would be viable by 2025. What I can tell you is that the metrics in that report have all been outstripped. All the growth numbers, all the traffic numbers have been outstripped. Secondly, we must understand that the Peak District National Park is one of the most visited national parks on the planet. Within 1 hour drive, there's 20 million people. Secondly, we must understand, and within 2 to 3 hours drive, 90% of the UK population. The other thing that we must look at is outside Derbyshire. Sometimes we don't understand what other councils are doing. There's an on-off proposal in Cheshire around Adlington for almost a new town with 20,000 houses, which may or may not come to fruition. But I want you to consider 20,000 extra houses right on the edge of the Peak Park and what that will do for traffic. We've got large-scale housing proposals right across the country anyway. We've got housing pressures in Derbyshire, but Cheshire have proposed a new town on the edge of the Peak Park, which nobody is mentioning. All the metrics therefore suggest that traffic in the Peak Park is likely to double in the next decade. I agree with some of Councillor Dale's comments, amazingly, that you'll not get people out of the cars. I love my car just as much as you do, Councillor Dale. However, this proposal is one of the few proposals that will hold back the traffic numbers. In my talks to MenRap, the very last conversation I asked him about funding completely by chance. The chap there tells me he has private financial backers in place, and that the vast majority of money for this will be private. He's asking no money from the county council. He's talking to the government because it's a national infrastructure project. And he tells me, although I've not had this confirmed verbally, that he has got support from some local MPs. What I would suggest is that our new cabinet member for business picks up the old Derbyshire report and speaks urgently to MenRap and ties the two reports together to see how viable this is. So there is a Derbyshire report on this. It does say it could be viable by 2025, and large-scale housing means the car numbers are going to double in the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor Smith, would you like to close the debate, please?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to all the members who contributed to this debate. whatever your views and whether or not you agreed with my motion. As Councillor Somerville said, there seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of what this motion is asking for today. It only proposes that we support the Peaks and Dales Line Group's proposals. The design, funding and delivery of the project is entirely down to the Peaks and Dales Line Group. And I'd just like to quickly respond to a few of my fellow councillors around the chamber. To Councillor Gourlay, it was actually a new feasibility study released in mid-April 2026. To Councillor Hobson, the White Peak Loop is considered in the proposal, which includes an enhanced Monsell Trail network, maintaining and improving multi-user routes along and connected to the reinstated railway. As Councillor Wheelson said, thank you very much, just now, reinstating the Peaks and Dales line is the only viable option for reducing vehicle movements in the Peak Park. And to Councillor Kinsella, I think he is right to point out that people drive out to use the White Peak Loop and drive home. Even so, the Peaks and Dales line proposal includes alternative provision. And I noticed that Councillor Kinsella was mentioning CO2, and I think the reduction in tonnes of CO2 suggested in the proposal is something between 15,000 to up to 60,000 tonnes of CO2 would be saved annually by the reinstatement. Councillor Burfoot, the Peak Park Authority local plan is still in development at this time. I am a member of both the Peak Park, a representative for DCC on both the Planning Committee and the Peak Park Authority. So the official view on this proposal, these proposals are not yet clear, and I will be working with them as a DCC representative. To Linda Gruby, the Buxton Group, I understand, want to improve local connectivity, so do I. And I believe this is by far the best way to do it. Councillor Peasy said, and thank you for your support, said this is about looking into the idea in more depth, and I thank you very much for that. That is exactly what this motion is about. Councillor Dale, to Councillor Dale, I drive and love a classic sports car, Z4 Coupe myself. The proposal is not anti-car. It simply recognises that a great many vehicle movements could more efficiently be made by rail. So it is not anti-car, it is simply pro-train. I'll wrap up now, but I thank you all very much for the attention that you've given my motion, and especially the support of those who've spoken in favour of it this afternoon. Thank you again.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We'll move to the vote, please. Yep. Thank you. That's been carried. And the second motion is from Councillor Dale. Councillor Dale, would you like to move your motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. This year, as we've been discussing, marks the 75th anniversary of the Peak District National Park, which, as we know, is Britain's first national park and it's most popular as well. And it was created on the principle that our countryside should be open and accessible to everyone, regardless of our background or income. So I find it personally astonishing that the leader of the County Council, Councillor Graves, has repeatedly advocated introducing a pay-to-enter charging scheme for the Peak District. Not once, not accidentally, not taken out of context, but repeatedly over the course of a year, including a recent statement that my position remains the same. Let's be absolutely clear what is being proposed here. Cameras monitoring roads into the Peak District and charging motorists simply for entering our national park. Reform were elected claiming they would cut your taxes. Yet one of the flagship ideas in Derbyshire is quite literally a new charge on residents and visitors using public roads. Derbyshire motorists already pay fuel duty, vehicle excise duty, parking charges and countless other motoring costs. Reform's answer is apparently you need to pay more. And the contradiction is extraordinary. Only a short time ago, Reform members supported a council motion that I put forward to oppose the Mayor's proposed tourism tax because they argued it would damage tourism and deter visitors. But now they support a tourism tax on wheels, a pay-per-view entry charge just to access the Peak District. You cannot oppose taxing overnight visitors in hotels while simultaneously supporting charging ordinary families to drive into the national park. Those positions are also fundamentally incompatible. Reform also claim they want to stand up for motorists, and we all saw the pictures of Councillor Graves in his blue Bentley at the petrol station in Reform's latest publicity stunt. Just I'm not jealous, trust me. Maybe a little bit, all right. Yet this proposal is indistinguishable from the kind of anti-car congestion charging schemes you'd see in a Labour, Lib Dem or Green run council. We should also consider the sheer absurdity and impracticality of how this scheme would actually work in reality. Where would the cameras go? Which roads would be charged? Would local residents be exempt? What about workers, carers, farmers, delivery drivers, volunteers? Who would enforce it? How much bureaucracy would it require? How much public money would be spent in administering it? The Peak District is not a theme park with ticket barriers. It spans hundreds of square miles, dozens of communities, and an extensive public highway network. The likely outcome would simply be more bureaucracy, more enforcement costs, more pressure on local businesses, and fewer visitors supporting Derbyshire's economy. At a time when many families are struggling with the cost of living, the last thing people need is another charge simply for enjoying Derbyshire's countryside. And so this motion draws a clear line in the sand. The Peak District should remain open, accessible and free to enter. And this council should send a united message that we oppose any congestion charge, road user charging scheme or pay-to-access proposal for the Peak District, both now and in the future. And I urge members to support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. And who'll be seconding? Thank you. So, Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. My division includes Hayfield, where the historic Kinder Trespass took place in 1932, an event that ultimately led to the improved access to the countryside and to the Peak District being chosen over the Lake District as one of the first national park. When Benny Rothman and his fellow comrades undertook this action, fighting for the right to roam, it was to support free access for all, so those who live in towns and cities can enjoy what we know to be the considerable health and well-being benefits of walking in the countryside. Those who come on a day visit are often our own Derbyshire residents who can't easily access the Peak District National Park by public transport. The suggested Mini Switzerland project and the light rail from Buxton to the Monsall Trail being delivered by the East Midlands Mayor should make this easier. Whilst I'm not against the overnight visitor levy, to charge those who come for a day's walking in our beautiful Peak District goes totally against the ethos of those early walkers of 1932 and their campaign. Lord Roy Hattersley, when he attended the 80th anniversary of the Kinder Trespass, said that this was the most successful direct action in British history. In an area where free access and the right to roam was hard fought for, the idea of charging day visitors an extra fee to enter and access our hills is contrary to our history and ideals. I will be voting for on this motion.
Councillor Somerville, please.
Yeah, always love when a politician uses the word free. I just want a couple of quotes from members of the Conservative group. Councillor Dale at a previous council session talked about the problems that his government has caused in 2014 with the SEND proposals, which had effectively limited the ability for Derbyshire County Council to react in the way it needed to, in his opinion, with those issues. Effectively, what you're doing is the same thing here, is because this motion isn't stopping us it's trying to get the council to take a position against something which another body may do. So you don't, essentially the same sort of thing. Clearly, there are facilities that this is currently paying for, and so what you're trying to do is you're trying to stop this other body from being able to run itself properly. And Councillor Majors, you said previously last council session about the with your cement pipeline that you don't want to kill the golden goose. But then surely if these facilities need paying for, then that was going to just have that exact effect. And maybe the Conservatives have got some national idea way in which they're going to pay for all this. I know the Shadow Chancellor's suggested an income tax rise, so maybe that's where it's coming from. I'd like to get an answer on that. But that is the problem with the Tories. They eventually run out of other people's money.
Councillor Snowdon, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be supporting the motion because it is just a pay-to-enter scheme in an area that's very difficult to control. I think the whole thing is impractical. There's no indication of how much money would be brought in, or at least it's not contained in the motion, what the intention would be for raising money. There's too many questions with this. How many cameras would be required? I mean, how many small roads lead into the Peak District? Are you going to have cameras on each road going in? What next? You're going to put toll booths up or something? It's just not practical at all. And this is a new tax on motorists coming into a national park from a party that campaigned to reduce taxation. That just didn't seem to sit well either. This would take away free access to national parks, especially if it's copied elsewhere in the country. And that's in a year that celebrates 75 years of free and open access to our national parks. There also seems to be a bit of a fixation with surveillance cameras. We've got number recognition cameras on all of our recycling centres to see whether people are sneaking in from outside the county. And now we've got a party that's recommending that we put cameras on our roads to see if people are sneaking into the national park area. It's just worrying. What's next? Facial recognition, so you can see who was driving the car as well. I believe you can get some good deals in China on that. And it just seems that with all these cameras and proposals for them, the big brother's alive and well in Derbyshire, and we shouldn't be supporting schemes like this. Thank you.
Councillor Graves, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, I welcome this motion. Not because it's accurate, it is not, but because it gives me the opportunity to put the record straight and to ask the Conservative group a question that this motion conspicuously fails to answer. Let me start where Councillor Dale and I agree. The Peak District National Park is a national treasure. It is the first national park in this country and the first in the world. It was founded on the principle that the countryside should be open and accessible to all. And I believe that principle wholeheartedly. Nobody in this chamber will hear me say otherwise. On that, we are entirely united. Now let me deal with what this motion actually is. It quotes me as saying, we could put some kind of cameras up. When you enter, you pay £1. Let me give this chamber the context that the motion deliberately omits. That the comment was made in the course of a conversation, a discussion about how the Peak District National Park might raise money, a discussion prompted by the Chief Executive of the Peak District National Park, Phil Mulligan, who had been asked by the media about the possible funding of the Peak. I was asked, do you think visitors would pay £1? I said they probably would. I was pressed, how would you collect it? I said, I didn't know, but there are various possible mechanisms, including cameras. And then I said clearly and repeatedly that my preferred position was simply fund the park properly. That is what I said, a conversation, not a proposal, an answer to a question, not a policy. And the motion before us today takes that conversation, strips away the context, inflates it into a formal charging scheme, attaches it to words like congestion charge and road user charging, neither of which I have ever used, and then asks this council to pass 7 clauses condemning it. If that is not a political football, Madam Chairman, I do not know what one looks like. However, I'm not going to hide behind the context. I said what I said. My position has not changed, and I will not pretend it has. If this government of the country, whether Conservative or Labour, is not prepared to fund the Peak District adequately, then it is not unreasonable to ask what alternatives there are. That is not radicalism, that is responsible stewardship of a place we all care about. Which brings me to the question that this motion does not ask, and that I would ask Councillor Dale and his councillors to answer. The Peak District National Park has lost approximately 40% of its budget in real terms since 2010. 40%. Staff ranges have been cut, resources have been cut. Phil Mulligan has spent years managing the world's first national park on a cash freeze. Once you account for inflation and rising employment costs, amounts to a cut every single year. Who was in charge of the government during those 16 years? Well, who controlled the Treasury while that 40% disappeared? Not Reform UK, not Labour, but the Conservative Party. And now we have Councillor Dale brings a motion to this chamber celebrating the park's 75th anniversary and opposing charges. And the motion contains not one word, not a single syllable about the funding crisis that his party created. Not one word about the Conservative group's solution is. Not one word about how the park should be funded if the government will not do so. Just 7 clauses carefully drafted to try and put me, the council's leader, in a difficult position. I asked Councillor Dale directly, what is your answer? You had 14 years. You cut 40% of the budget in real terms. You reduced ranges. You imposed a cash freeze. And your solution to the funding crisis is what exactly? A motion saying the park should be free. Well, the park is free. It has always been free. The question is how it survives while being free. On that question, this motion is completely silent. Madam Chairman, I have no objection to this council affirming that the Peak District should remain freely accessible. It should and it will. But I will not allow a motion that misrepresents what I said, ignores the funding crisis and asks us all to pretend the problem does not exist to pass through this chamber without challenge. The real debate, the debate this council should be having, is how we ensure that the world's first national park receives the funding it needs to fulfil its founding purpose. That means pressing the government. It means Phil Mulligan and others making the case at national level. It means the East Midlands Mayor, who has access to new regional funding, stepping up rather than merely posting on Facebook. That is the debate we should be having. And that is the debate the Peak District deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grave. Councillor Hobson next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I strongly support keeping the Peak District National Park free to access for everyone on its 75th birthday. And I do welcome the comments by Councillor Graves that is his intention and that of his group. Introducing charges would create barriers for families, younger people and those on lower incomes, undermining one of the core purposes of the Peak Park, to promote opportunities for the understanding and enjoyment of the park's special qualities. I continue to be a member of the Peak Park Local Access Forum, as a member of Derbyshire County Council, which remains one of the most rewarding positions that I have. Thousands of people live within a short distance of the Peak Park. Let's support them and the motion from Councillor Dale. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hobson. Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to echo Councillor Graves' sentiments. When I first heard the comments and someone asked me, do you support your leader's comments about charge a pound? My first question was, what the heck? And wondering what was going on. I think, as Councillor Graves has actually said, there's context that has been missed in this debate, and what the Conservatives have failed to realise or actually addressing here is the solutions. The funding of the Peak Park moving forward has failed it. And while I agree in principle that yes, it should be free and accessible to everyone, what the chair of the Peak Park has said is, let us look to have a sustainable funding stream outside of government grants that hinders it, which is adding just to the taxpayer's burden outside of it. Now, I'm not proposing that we move with a charge per each car that enters, but what I'm saying is we should be having a proper discussion about the solutions. And so what I'd actually do, because of the 6-month rule with motions, I'll actually invite the Leader of the Opposition to withdraw his motion, come to the table with Cabinet, with the Leader of Council and with the Chief Executive to actually look at this in its full context and go, what solutions as we as a council can actually get behind to look at this in the right way, rather than just sending the Peak District National Park back to government with its cap in hand, asking for more taxpayers' money, which we know this current government doesn't have because they are already spending more on welfare than they actually receive in tax revenue. How are we going to compete with that? Let's be looking at solutions to fix the issue, to make sure we can keep the national park for residents, for visitors, and actually have a sustainable model that works. Because otherwise, we can make a statement that says this will be free in perpetuity. But if we keep going down the current funding criteria for the park, within a decade, we may not have one. We may not have a service that protects the beautiful national park we've got, because there will be no funding to maintain it, no funding to preserve it, and no funding to make it accessible to everyone. So I would ask and urge that the Leader of the Opposition would withdraw his motion, come to the table, we could work on this collaboratively and find the right solution that actually puts this as the right statement we can make in support of residents and the national park on its 75th birthday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parkin, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations to both of you in your new roles. I would actually like to propose an amendment to the motion, and I have copies of it here for Council to distribute. Yeah. So this amendment essentially adds four sections to 4 clauses to the existing motion, and we'd like to propose this as a friendly amendment. Thank you.
Can I just ask if we have a seconder for the amendment, first of all, please?
Councillor Somerville.
Councillor Graves, are you wanting to speak?
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Okay.
he hasn't finished speaking yet.
All right, good. Sorry, do you want to continue, Councillor Parkin?
I thought you had more to say, Councillor Parkin, sorry. Okay, Madam Chairman, the Peak District is not just a Derbyshire treasure, it's a national one.
Sorry, Councillor Graves, I'm just going, before we do this next bit, I'm going to just suggest that we have an adjournment for 10 minutes.
I'm sure they can read. Have you read it, Councillor Dale? You love it. He loves it.
Do we need to adjourn for 10 minutes?
We don't need what? We don't need to adjourn.
No?
Madam Chairman, let's get on with it.
Okay. Okay, carry on.
Can I speak now?
You may speak.
Point of order, if the amendment's been proposed, under 1511.2 of why the amendment should not be accepted, around introducing new items to a motion, I think it fails this test, and I'd like to have a verdict on that, please.
Yeah, okay, so officers have seen it before and they're happy for it to go ahead. So do you want to continue, Councillor Graves?
I'm just trying to look at Councillor Majors considers an alternative. I mean, Madam Chairman, an amendment, by its nature, is an amendment. You have to do something, and this is what this amendment does. Madam Chairman, the Peak District is not just a Derbyshire treasure, it's a national one. It is one of the reasons people choose to live in this county, to work in this county, and yes, to visit it. It belongs to all of us, and it depends entirely on those who look after it. The facts are these. Since 2010, the core funding of the Peak District Park has fallen by approximately 40% in real terms. That is not my opinion. That is the position set out by National Parks England. And it is the position confirmed by the authority's own Chief Executive, Phil Mulligan, who has publicly stated that the authority cannot continue to operate effectively under a cash freeze, which inflation and rising employment costs amounts to a year-on-year cut. And what is the consequence, Madam Chairman? Fewer rangers, reduced frontline services, mounting pressure on staff who are doing their best to manage rising visitor numbers, protect fragile habitats, maintain rights of way and fulfil the authority's statutory duties. A cash freeze sounds neutral. In practice, it is an inflationary environment. It is a cut by stealth, and we should be honest enough to call it what it is. I do not stand here pretending that money is easy to find. I accept that public finances are constrained and have been for some time. However, I am not convinced that any government of any colour can credibly claim to value our natural heritage while quietly draining the resources of those charged with protecting it. There is also a principle at stake here, Madam Chairman, and it is one this Council has already taken a clear view on. We have already opposed the proposed visitor economy levy. We said then, and we say now again, that the cost of looking after our landscapes must not be shifted by a way of mandatory tax onto visitors and local businesses. But let me be clear, let me be very clear about what the principle does and does not mean. It does not mean I am closed-minded about how the Peak District is funded. Quite the opposite. I am genuinely open to and would actively support finding other sustainable ways of supporting the park alongside a proper central government settlement. Voluntary visitor contributions, philanthropic partnerships, heritage and lottery funding, sponsorship from businesses that benefit most of the park's draw, retained income from the park's own activities, stronger partnerships with the wider tourism sector. There are creative, modern, willing routes to support our landscapes that does not involve mandating costs onto visitors or burdening local businesses. And I would welcome the authority, the regional mayor and the central government bringing them forward. What we cannot accept is a compulsory levy presented as the only answer when the central government settlement itself has been quietly cut for 15 years. This amendment, Madam Chairman, strengthens the motion before us. It gives the Peak District the voice it deserves at a moment when its budget has been quietly hollowed out. It calls for a proper central government settlement, and it leaves the door wide open to creative, additional voluntary ways of funding our national parks, while standing firm on the principle that no mandatory burden should fall on visitors or on local businesses. I commend the amendment to Chamber, and I sincerely hope that members from across the political spectrum will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Councillor Major, please.
Madam Mayor, I've heard some very interesting comments today during many debates. One being, if an officer says it, it therefore must be right, and you can't possibly challenge something an officer has said. I didn't ever expect to hear that from a Reform Council. It's not always the case. Nobody is an absolute oracle on everything. People can be wrong, and we are here to challenge and to put our residents' views forward. We have a mandate. You won a mandate to deliver that. In terms of this, it's another thing that I find peculiar coming from a Reform administration. It was a Reform administration that said that they'll cut taxes, that there's all this waste and money that they could save here and save there, and that we don't need to put tax, we can reduce your taxes because we're going to bring in Doge. And now the only answer to a question is throwing more money at it, and not throwing any money, but actually throwing either a levy on people, like the parking levy in Nottingham, or a congestion charge, or ULEZ. It's an attack on motorists yet again as a cash cow. And I'm just a bit surprised, and I just can't agree to the only answer to these problems being is that we just need to increase more levies, more taxes. That's the only way we can fund these things, because before we know it, nobody will have any money to do anything else, and we'll just strangle our economy and the public, which was already near breaking point. I just don't buy that that's an answer to this problem.
Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to speak in support of Councillor Graves' amendment. I don't live in the Peak Park, but I represent a huge part of it. My ward starts in Ashbourne, but I represent a part of the Peak Park that runs from Fenny Bentley to Millersdale. It's a beautiful area. We all love it. We all enjoy it. But also, as a role as councillor, I've been put onto the National Park Authority. Slightly less than a year now, I think it was July. But in that short time that I've been on there, I've seen them really struggling to save money. Key members of staff have had to let go, made redundant, and they've had to reorganise the staff to try and fulfil the need. We've heard earlier about the millions of people that live within an hour's drive, and also how the demand is increasing. You know, the metrics that Councillor Rini mentioned have all exceeded our expectations. So we've got this huge demand on this valuable resource, celebrating 75 years, our first national park. How are we going to resource it? So, yeah, please support Councillor Graves' amendment. Work together. We've got to fund this and find money from somewhere, or we will lose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Does anybody else want to speak on the amendment first? Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I want to address some of Councillor Graves' comments. He asked me some direct questions, so I want to provide some direct answers. I think, firstly, Councillor Graves, you can layer all the context you want to on, you know, I said it in this way, I didn't quite say it in that way, or it was a discussion, it was just an open forum, you know, I didn't actually say it. You said those words, they were reported in several news outlets, and you stood by them. You said those words, you proposed and mooted a congestion charge on the Peak District. A Reform leader of a county council here in Derbyshire proposed to charge his own residents to enter the Peak District. So you can dress it up however you like. You said those words, and if you all support that, then good luck to you. You also asked a question about the budget for the Peak Park. Now, I have some sympathy with the Peak Park, absolutely. If it wasn't the case that every government department over the past 14 years and every local authority have also had significant funding constraints and challenges. We went through a global recession, we've had COVID, we've had everything else. All of us, all of these different government departments and local authorities have had to adapt. When the government doesn't give you what money you want, you have to find a way to make it work, and we have to adapt. You save the money, you make lots of different difficult decisions quite often, and you adapt. The answer isn't to continually just throw money at the problem or go to your begging bowl to government to get more money for the problem. And if I'm brutally honest, the Peak District National Park Authority have not helped themselves. They haven't helped themselves through this. They've got a draconian approach to planning and development within the Peak District. We all want to protect it, but also they have to make it viable and work. And there are so many people who are moving out of the Peak District because they cannot afford to live there because the Peak District National Park Authority won't allow anything. So the idea that, you know, it's all the government's fault because it's the previous Tory government's fault because they haven't funded the Peak Park sufficiently, it's just nonsense. Where have you been for the past 14 years? We've all had to deal with these challenges and make it work. And I think if reform's only answer to a question like this is to throw more money at the problem or go to the government for more money, I think that speaks to a fundamental truth about reform, which is that you are a socialist party. Whether you like it or not, you want to throw money at problems, you don't want to make difficult decisions to fix them. Thank you, Chair. Well, you are. You want to nationalise most industry, don't you?
Quiet, please. Councillor Parkin, would you like to close the debate on the amendment, please? Sorry. No, we're going to close the debate on the amendment now. Sorry.
We've already gone.
We have already gone to Councillor Dale to close it.
It's on the
Yeah, so we are going to go to Councillor Parkin, please, to close it, to close the amendment debate.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, we've had a variety of views. We've had a discussion, a debate on this, but I'd like to move to the vote, move the amendment to the motion, if that's okay, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move to the vote on the amendment now. So that's been carried on the amendment. So we now go back to
the debate on the original motion as amended.
Yeah, the debate on the original motion as amended. Does anybody want to speak on that?
So we've got Councillor Adams, he can speak.
Councillor Adams, do you want to speak on that? Anybody else want to speak on that?
So, Councillor Major.
So, Councillor Major, do you wish to speak on that? Yep, which means you, yeah. So you good? You don't have to, but it's not like you to miss an opportunity.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I can see you've got the measure of me. It's the first time I've got a round of applause from Councillor Grave as well, so there we go, thank you. It was worth it for that.
I think they were applauding me.
I didn't have to read it from the student either. Be careful, you end up with a sore neck. It's all banter, Chairman, and I think they're enjoying it. Would you like me to carry on? Although obviously we didn't support the amendment for the motion, we are going to support the new substantive motion, which includes the amendment. And I think it's good that clearly, although he's distanced himself from what he said and hasn't drawn back from it, clearly the substantive motion now with the amendment still has the things in that absolutely determines that the County Council's position will be that we will not introduce road charging to the Peak District. So we're very happy with that, and we're pleased that we find the conviction that road charging is a bad idea.
So does anybody else want to speak? No. Okay, no. So now
motion as amended.
Yeah. So we're going to vote now on the substantive motion as amended.
Have you voted?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that's carried.
That concludes the business.
Right, so we're going to close the meeting then. So thank you for attending. It's the end of the meeting, and I declare this closed.